the fluorescent light of the luxury suite in the Olympus Clinic felt sterile and unforgiving, much like the life Vivian Thorne herself had carefully constructed. At 51, Vivian was the undisputed titan of the medical services industry in the Southwest, a woman whose name was synonymous with ruthless precision and billions of dollars. But now, lying immobile in the very VIP wing she had designed, she knew the game was over. The change wasn't in the Egyptian cotton sheets or the soundproofing. It was in the air, a subtle metallic taste of finality, and in the eyes of the staff, who moved with an unnatural reverence. They were no longer serving a client. They were attending a monument about to crumble. Vivian's eyes were barely slits, a trick learned decades ago in boardroom battles. The pain medication dulled her body, yet it gifted her mind an unsettling, diamond-sharp clarity, the kind of hyper-awareness one feels just before a massive impact. Outside the door, the low, graveled voice of the chief physician, Dr. Alastair Finch, cut through the quiet. He was speaking to Adam Sterling, Vivian's husband of 5 years. "Mr. Sterling," Dr. Finch began, his voice heavy with professional regret, "I must be brutally honest. Mrs. Thorne's hepatic and renal failure is irreversible. Despite maximum intervention, her system is shutting down. We are at the end of the line. I estimate no more than 72 hours, perhaps less. I am profoundly sorry." The silence that followed was a physical presence, a cold wall slamming into Vivian's consciousness. 72 hours. The medical facade had finally dropped. It confirmed the cold dread she'd lived with for the past month. Her body, built on iron discipline and relentless work, was betraying her. She was 51, an empire. Private jets, penthouses in Phoenix and New York, a net worth that defied easy counting. And now, 3 days. She thought of the last 5 years, the whirlwind courtship with Adam. 10 years her junior, devastatingly handsome, an ambitious executive she'd plucked from her own corporate structure. She'd married him for the warmth, for the laughter, for the relief from the crushing solitude of success. He'd reignited a desperate light within her, and in her need, she had deliberately chosen to ignore the shallow glint behind his charming smile. Her fortune was her fortress, but Adam had walked right through the gate, not as a conqueror, but as a comforting companion. The door opened softly. Vivian did not stir. Adam Sterling entered, moving with a fluid, confident ease. He smelled of a custom cologne, a blend of sandalwood and expensive arrogance she had personally commissioned for him last Christmas. That scent, once intoxicating, now felt like a chemical burn. He sat on the edge of the bed and gently took her hand, his fingers warm, dry, and perfectly cared for. He spoke, his voice low, intimate, and devastatingly cold. The mask was off. "Finally, I've waited so damn long for this moment." His thumb stroked her wrist in a parody of affection. 5 years, Vivian. 5 years of waking up to that perpetually calculating expression, holding this cold, demanding hand. 5 years of playing the devoted, supportive husband to a woman whose only love was her balance sheet. Vivian's internal tension was monumental. Every muscle screamed to move, to strike, but she forced herself into a state of deep, sedated calm. "The Thorne Group, the assets, the land holdings in Scottsdale, all of it becomes mine," Adam continued, his voice laced with pure, unfiltered contempt and triumph. 5 years of listening to your lectures on integrity and discipline, smiling at your pathetic social climbing friends, lying in the massive, lonely bed next to you. He chuckled, a soft, sickening sound. "You thought you bought yourself a trophy husband, didn't you? A handsome distraction for your empty life. But I had a much grander plan." He leaned closer, his breath carrying the faint, sweet trace of a morning whiskey, a sign of his hidden weakness. "The tea was my masterpiece, a minimal dose, consistent and untraceable. They blamed it on stress, on corporate burnout, on aging. A perfectly executed, clean exit. No one will ever look for murder, Vivian. You die of natural causes, and I inherit the throne you worked so hard to build." Adam stood, smoothing the bespoke suit she had paid for, adjusting the silk blanket over her inert body with a final, false gesture of care. He then walked out, calling out to the nurse in the hallway, his voice instantly shifting back to the performance of the distraught, loving spouse. When the door clicked shut, Vivian slowly opened her eyes. They were not blurred by weakness, but by a consuming, crystalline rage. The pieces of the puzzle, the unexplained nausea, the relentless fatigue, the rapid organ failure, slammed together into a single, horrifying picture. She hadn't been sick. She had been systematically, patiently murdered. The realization didn't bring shock. It brought a cold, calculated determination. He killed me for the money. I will die before he touches 1 cent of it. Vivian's medical knowledge, her intrinsic distrust of her own doctors, had saved her. 3 weeks ago, she had secretly sent blood work to a discreet, independent lab in Los Angeles. The results, confirmed just 5 days ago, showed trace elements of a potent, hard-to-source toxic compound, a substance that mimicked natural organ failure. She had dismissed it then, horrified. Now, Adam's confession was the confirmation. She had 72 hours, maybe less. She needed an operative, someone outside Adam's orbit, someone invisible. She turned her head slowly, painfully, toward the door. She heard the soft squeak of wheels and the rhythmic slosh-slosh of a mop bucket in the hallway. "Girl," she called out, her voice a dry rasp that barely carried. The noise stopped instantly. The door creaked open, and a young woman peered in. She was petite, with deep brown eyes, wearing the uniform of the Olympus Clinic's housekeeping staff. Her face, though tired, held a sharp, guarded intelligence. Vivian recognized her. She was the quiet girl who always worked the late shift on the VIP floor, efficiently emptying trash and polishing surfaces. "Are you all right, ma'am? Do you need the nurse?" the young woman asked, stepping cautiously closer. She smelled faintly of chlorine and hard work. "No, I don't." Vivian forced her voice to be steady. "What is your name?" "Lee Reyes, ma'am. I'll call Dr. Finch." "Lee, close the door. I need your help. It's an urgent matter. Personal." Lee hesitated, glancing nervously at the door. Loss of the job was a terrifying prospect. "If you do everything I say, Lee," Vivian paused, gathering a colossal reserve of strength, "you will receive enough money to never wear this uniform again, to never mop floors or worry about rent again." "I know about your sister's medical bills, Lee. I know about the college loans you put on hold. This amount will erase all of it and guarantee your freedom." Lee's eyes widened, a flicker of raw, desperate hope igniting in their depths. Vivian saw the hunger, the same hunger that had driven her own ascent decades ago. This girl would cling to any lifeline. "In my nightstand," Vivian instructed. "My satellite phone, the private one. Find the contact named Hampton, call him. Tell him Vivian Thorne needs him here immediately." A personal, critical matter. Lee Reyes hesitated for only a fraction of a second, the overwhelming risk battling the blinding promise of wealth and freedom. The weight of her sister's mounting dialysis costs ultimately tipped the scales. She moved to the ornate mahogany nightstand. The satellite phone was heavy, cool, and clearly not standard issue. Her fingers, accustomed to scrubbing stubborn stains, trembled slightly as she scrolled through the encrypted contacts. She found Hampton, and pressed the call button. The phone rang twice before a crisp, professional voice answered. "Hampton, Mr. Hampton, my name is Lee Reyes. I'm calling from the Olympus Clinic, from Vivian Thorne. She needs you here urgently. She says it's a critical, personal matter." Lee spoke quickly, reciting the words as if they were a spell she dared not break. The lawyer's response was instant and analytical. "Is she conscious? I was told her condition was..." "Yes, she is conscious, fully. She insists it cannot wait." Lee held the phone out to Vivian, her palms sweating. Vivian took the phone, the effort required to lift her arm enormous. She pressed the receiver against her cheek. "Jason," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, fueled by the cold fire of her rage. "It's me. I need a new will drafted. Right now. Bring a private notary. And I need absolute discretion. I am being murdered, Jason. This is my last chance to secure my revenge." Jason Hampton, a man who had handled every legal crisis in Vivian's career from hostile takeovers to federal inquiries, absorbed the statement without a gasp, only a deepening metallic chill in his voice. "I understand. I'm mobilizing. I'll be there in under an hour with the notary and necessary witnesses." Not a word to anyone, Vivian. Vivian dropped the phone back onto the bed covers, the effort leaving her breathless. She looked at Lee. "Thank you. Now sit. You will stay here. When he arrives, you will be the witness. Do you understand your role?" "But..." "Why me, ma'am?" Lee's voice was a whisper of confusion and fear. "I'm just the cleaner. Why trust me with everything?" Vivian managed a faint, chilling smile, a ghost of her former formidable self. "Because you are nothing. To Adam, you are the wallpaper. He cannot buy you, intimidate you, or track your loyalties. You are beneath his notice, Lee, and that makes you the perfect instrument. Desperate, invisible, and ready." Lee sank onto the plush chair against the wall, overwhelmed by the sudden, terrifying intimacy of the situation. She had crossed an irreversible line. The knowledge that she was now holding the fate of a billionaire's empire in her hands and the fate of a murderer was an almost unbearable weight. She promised herself, if she survived this, she would keep her vow to Vivian. The wait was an eternity of strained silence, punctuated only by the rhythmic, agonizing beat of Vivian's own heart. Outside, the Arizona dusk settled early, casting long, purple shadows across the expensive room. Vivian internally repeated Adam's hateful words, each syllable a shot of pure adrenaline keeping her mind active and her body anchored. Precisely 55 minutes later, a soft, urgent tap came at the door. Jason Hampton stepped inside. At 50, he was flawlessly tailored, his expensive suit hiding the quick, coiled energy of a world-class litigator. His eyes, usually cool and assessing, were now etched with grim concern. He was followed by his paralegal, Cassidy Bell, a sharp, alert young woman carrying a secure tablet. Hampton's first action was a swift, dismissive scan of Lee by the wall. He recognized the uniform, filed the information away, and immediately went to Vivian's bedside. "Vivian, what is this?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "Close the door, Jason, sit, and record every word." Hampton nodded to Cassidy, who secured the door and produced a small, professional voice recorder. "May I, for legal clarity?" Hampton asked. "Do it." Vivian, speaking with the clear, unwavering cadence of a CEO issuing final orders, recounted the recent blood analysis, the unauthorized toxic compound, and most crucially, Adam's triumphant confession moments earlier. She detailed his words, the scorn, the motive. Hampton listened without interruption, his face growing harder with every word. The news of the poisoning was not a shock. Vivian had often suspected Adam, but the audacity of his open confession was startling. "The evidence," Hampton stated, his voice now deep and graveled. "Do you still have the analysis reports and the original samples?" "In my private vault at the Phoenix estate. The code is 8,021,968. My mother's birth year, month, and day. You need to secure them before Adam realizes they exist. They are the basis for the criminal case." "Understood. But first, the will. Without it, the criminal conviction is only posthumous justice. Legally, the estate falls to him. We must secure the estate." "Exactly," Vivian whispered, her exhaustion finally starting to win the battle against her rage. "I want to bequeath everything, my entire personal and premarital property, to Lee Reyes." Vivian indicated the silent, pale young woman with a slight tilt of her chin. "She will receive a substantial trust, and she will compensate you handsomely for your services. Include that provision." Hampton turned and scrutinized Lee, who was now trembling visibly. She was deathly pale but met his gaze with a desperate, frightened nod. "Ma'am, do you comprehend the gravity of this?" Hampton's question was clinical. Lee swallowed, her throat dry. I understand I will inherit everything, sir, and that Mr. Sterling will try to stop it." "He will do more than try," Hampton countered, his voice sharp. "He is a murderer. He will challenge the will, intimidate you, bribe you, or worse. Are you ready for a war, Ms. Reyes? Because that is what Mrs. Thorne is handing you." Lee took a deep, shuddering breath. The thought of permanent poverty, of failing her sister, was still more terrifying than the danger. "I am," she managed to say. "I promise Mrs. Thorne justice." "Good," Vivian stated, her voice now barely audible. "Jason, draw up the will. Secure it against any legal attack. I need an independent physician and a notary immediately to confirm my mental capacity at the moment of signing. No doctor from this clinic, no witnesses from Adam's staff." Hampton moved instantly. "Cassidy, call the on-call public notary. Then contact St. Jude's Hospital across town. We need an independent geriatric specialist or neurologist. They must be here within the hour. Absolute secrecy." Cassidy Bell moved to the hallway, phone pressed to her ear. Hampton turned back to the dying woman, a sudden, unfamiliar respect in his stern gaze. Vivian Thorne was not just dying, she was executing the perfect final takeover. The hour that followed was a surreal, high-stakes ballet performed in the shadow of death. Lee Reyes remained glued to the chair, her mind a whirling mix of terror and disbelief, watching the elite legal machine mobilized by Vivian Thorne. The fear of being discovered by Adam or one of his associates was a cold hand gripping her chest, but the image of her sister, frail and dependent on the hospital machines, kept her rooted to the spot. Jason Hampton efficiently coordinated the arrival of the external team. First came the public notary, Mr. Theodore Vance, a meticulous older gentleman who arrived with a leather briefcase and an air of solemn urgency. He was followed closely by Dr. Alina Ramirez, a respected neuropsychologist from St. Jude, S., wearing a crisp white coat and a deeply professional frown. Dr. Ramirez's presence was paramount. Without her independent certification, Adam would tear the will apart. The atmosphere in the room was electric, a silent convergence of legal power, medical authority, and imminent mortality. Dr. Ramirez approached the bed. She conducted a quick but thorough assessment, asking Vivian standard orientation questions. What is today's date? Where are you? Who currently holds the office of the president? Vivian, despite the profound physical drain, answered each question with perfect clarity and a tone that brooked no argument. Dr. Ramirez checked her pupils, reviewed her chart quickly, and noted her coherent and firm answers. She completed the required legal form. Patient is oriented to time, place, and person. Cognition is clear, legally capable to execute a testamentary document. The psychiatrist affixed her signature and stamp, clearing the crucial legal hurdle. Mr. Vance, the notary, opened his secured laptop. Hampton stood nearby, filming the entire procedure on his phone, creating an irrefutable video record. He wanted no grounds for challenge. The notary began typing the short, devastating document. He read the operative clause aloud, his voice steady. I, Vivian Thorne of sound mind and memory, do hereby revoke all former wills and codicils, and bequeath my entire personal estate, all premarital assets, holdings, corporations, and properties, as they belong to me on the day of my demise. To Lee Reyes, he looked up over the rim of his glasses at the dying woman. Ms. Thorne, are you fully aware that you are intentionally disinheriting your legal husband, Adam Sterling? I am aware. That is my absolute express wish, Vivian affirmed, her voice thin but unwavering. Are you executing this document of your own free will, without duress or coercion? I confirm that I am. Her eyes, fixed intensely on the notary, left absolutely no room for doubt about her resolve. The notary printed the will with a portable printer. Hampton ensured the documents were perfectly aligned. Vivian took the pen. Her hand trembled violently, but with a final, monumental surge of will, she scrawled her signature onto the bottom line. It was a messy, wavering symbol of her last, most important business transaction. Mr. Vance applied his official seal. The witnesses, Cassidy Bell and a registered nurse from a neighboring department whom Hampton had quickly vetted, signed below. The document is attested and sealed, the notary confirmed, placing the document carefully into a secure, dated envelope. I will deposit this with the probate court immediately upon your passing. Everything is legally sound. There is no longer any legal point of attack for Mr. Sterling. Vivian gave a slow, minute nod. Her energy was completely spent. Jason Hampton leaned close, his concern genuine. Ms. Thorne, I will pursue the criminal investigation immediately. The moment you pass, I will petition the district attorney's office using the independent toxicology reports you provided me with weeks ago. Adam Sterling will be held accountable. I swear it. Thank you, Jason, she whispered, the words barely a breath. It was the only acknowledgement she needed. One by one, the professionals left, the doctor, the notary, the paralegal, and the temporary nurse. Only Lee remained, standing by the bedside, her entire life irrevocably altered by the signatures on a single piece of paper. Go home, Lee, Vivian instructed, her voice flat with fatigue. Come back tomorrow. And never forget the promise you made. Lee nodded, unable to speak, and slipped silently out of the room. Vivian Thorne was alone. She stared out the window into the cool, dark Arizona night. The lights of Phoenix glowed in the distance, illuminating the empire she had just snatched from her killer's grasp. 3 days, maybe less, but she had succeeded. The peace that settled over her was not from resignation, but from the cold, satisfying finality of a perfectly executed revenge. She felt no pain now, only a deep, profound calm. Vivian Thorne died quietly sometime before dawn. The nurses found her in the morning. When Adam Sterling was informed, he rushed into a loud, demonstrative display of grief in the hallway, burying his face in his hands. The clinic staff, whom he had always treated with veiled disdain, comforted him. He accepted their condolences, dabbing his eyes with a silk handkerchief, but behind the tears, a triumphant, calculated gleam danced in his eyes. He thought he had won. He spent the morning in the late Vivian's massive, immaculate home office in Phoenix. The office was filled with the scent of her custom perfume and the quiet hum of her financial power. He sat in her executive chair, flipping through property deeds and banking records, already calculating the liquidation timeline. 5 years of performance. The result was here. He had already checked the estate's complex prenuptial status, flawless, no community property of consequence. As the surviving spouse and with no children, he was the sole, obvious heir. He leaned back, stretching luxuriously. The clear October light streamed through the panoramic windows. His secure phone vibrated. It was Dr. Anya Sharma, the pharmaceutical contact, the woman he had corrupted and bribed to source the rare, undetectable poison. He answered, his voice dripping with false melancholy. "Yes, my dear, how are we doing?" Anya's voice was cautious, tight. "It's done, Adam. Quietly, liver failure, everything went as predicted." "Predictably perfect," he corrected, savoring the victory. "I calculated the dose meticulously, spread over months. The compound breaks down fast. Even if someone decides to check, which they won't, they will find nothing. I am a genius, Anya." "Who looks for murder when a stressed billionaire dies of organ failure at 51? Anya was silent for a beat. "And the will? You were sure she never updated it after the first rough draft? There is no will, Anya." "I checked the secure vault last night after the initial panic and again this morning. Nothing relevant. The entire estate is premarital. The law is on my side." He radiated smug self-satisfaction. "Don't worry, 6 months. I'll liquidate the major holdings, sell the private hospital chain, and we disappear. Anywhere you want. We'll live several lifetimes on this money." Anya sighed into the phone. "Just be careful. Mourn properly, Adam. Play the heartbroken widower." "I am a professional, Anya. I played the role of my life for 5 years." He sneered and hung up, pouring himself a glass of Vivian's favorite 25-year-old single malt scotch. It tasted like triumph. He was a king reclaiming his throne. A hard rap on the office door startled him. The housekeeper, an older woman with years of service to Vivian and undisguised suspicion towards Adam, entered. "Mr. Sterling, the attorney is here for you. Mr. Hampton. He insists it cannot wait." Adam frowned. Jason Hampton, too smart, too observant. What did he want? Settlement of his fees. "Show him in." Hampton entered, his figure a study in tailored menace. He offered no handshake, his face severe, his eyes cold and devoid of any sympathy. "Mr. Sterling," Hampton began, standing rigidly in the center of the lavish office. He didn't take the offered seat, nor did he acknowledge the scotch Adam had poured. His gaze was steady, cold, and utterly judging. "My condolences on the loss of your wife. However, I need to discuss urgent legal matters. They pertain directly to the disposition of the estate." Adam, who had managed to force his features into a mask of restrained sorrow, gestured vaguely at the leather armchair. "Of course, Jason. Terrible tragedy. Please sit. I'm utterly devastated, but business must continue, as Vivian would insist." Hampton ignored the chair and pulled a slim, burgundy file from his briefcase. The file looked deceptively small, yet its contents instantly registered as a threat in Adam's hyper-alert mind. "Vivian Thorne left a will," Hampton stated flatly. The words struck Adam with the physical force of a blow. He froze, the glass of scotch halfway to his lips. His carefully constructed facade cracked, revealing a fissure of pure, cold panic. A will? Impossible. He had checked the vault. Had he been outsmarted? The memory of Vivian's subtle, calculating intelligence, even in her decline, sent a wave of nausea through him. A will? Adam managed, his voice thin and sharp. When? That's utterly impossible. She was virtually in a coma, heavily sedated. The entire personal estate, including all premarital assets, has been bequeathed to another party. Hampton paused, allowing the implication to sink in completely. Adam lowered the glass, placing it down so hard it splashed the expensive liquid onto the mahogany desk. He had killed for nothing. 5 years of patience, 5 years of calculated performance, all negated by a single, final act of spite. You mean I am not the heir according to this alleged will? His voice was a tight wire, straining for composure. Myth. Thorne exercised her legal right to dispose of her property as she saw fit, Hampton replied, his tone clinical. The will was executed yesterday evening, less than 24 hours before her death, in the presence of an independent public notary and a certified neuropsychologist who confirmed her full legal capacity to execute the document. Adam sprang to his feet, the performance of grief dissolving into raw, ugly fury. That's fraudulent. She was terminally ill, not of sound mind. This is a farce orchestrated by you, Jason. Hampton's calm demeanor was a stark, infuriating contrast to Adam's escalating hysteria. We have a certificate from Dr. Alina Ramirez of St. Jude's Hospital confirming her mental lucidity and free will at the moment of signing. We also have a video recording of the entire process, attested to by the notary, Mr. Vance. Every legal precaution you could imagine was taken, Mr. Sterling. The document is a legal fortress. To whom? Adam demanded, his hands trembling. To whom did she leave it? Her cousin, a business rival. He was desperate to place the rival in his field of vision. The beneficiary will be formally announced tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock at the notary's office. Your attendance is mandatory should you wish to receive your legal counsel copy. Hampton allowed himself the slightest, fleeting flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. I will contest it. I will tie this up in court for years. Adam slammed his fist onto the desk, the Scotch glass rattling ominously. That is your right, Mr. Sterling, Hampton acknowledged, finally retrieving his briefcase. I merely advise you to prepare yourself, both morally and legally. The time for surprises on your part is over. Hampton nodded once and walked out, leaving Adam Sterling alone in the expansive office. The silence now was crushing, roaring with the sound of a billion-dollar inheritance being violently snatched away. A will. How? He grabbed his phone and frantically dialed Anya Sharma's number. Anya, we have a colossal problem. Vivian tricked us. A will. The next morning, Adam Sterling arrived at the notary's office in downtown Phoenix, his eyes shadowed by a sleepless night. He was accompanied by Dr. Anya Sharma, whom he introduced to the receptionist as his personal support. Anya, tense and pale in a sharp black suit, scanned the room with professional paranoia. Mr. Theodore Vance, the notary, received them in his private conference room. Jason Hampton and his paralegal, Cassidy Bell, were already seated, radiating cold confidence. Where is the heir? Adam asked, his voice strained and low. He half expected a rival CEO. The heiress is not present, Mr. Sterling, the notary replied evenly. Her interests are represented by Mr. Hampton, based on a notarized power of attorney. Who is she? Adam hissed, his composure disintegrating. Give me a name. Mr. Vance opened the file, pulling out the sealed document. He looked directly at Adam, his expression a mixture of professional formality and personal disapproval. According to the last will and testament of Vivian Thorne, the sole heir to her entire estate is Lee Ray's, reciting. Adam's mind went blank. The name meant nothing. Lee Ray's, I've never heard of her. This is preposterous. Disbelief swiftly curdled into a stark, chilling horror. Anya gripped his arm, squeezing hard, a desperate silent plea for him to maintain control. The cleaning woman, Hampton interjected casually, as if remarking on the humidity. The housekeeper who worked the late shift on the VIP floor of the Olympus Clinic, where your wife passed away. Adam recoiled as if struck. The cleaner, a common maid, she left everything to a cleaner. He felt the polished marble floor tilting beneath his feet. The testatrix is legally entitled to bequeath her property to any person she chooses, Mr. Sterling, the notary confirmed dryly. The law does not require sentimental justification, although, I can assure you, Ms. Thorne's motives were exceptionally clear. She was sick, not of sound mind. Adam stammered, clinging desperately to the only available legal fiction. Hampton placed the psychiatric assessment directly onto the table, covering the spot where Adam had spilled the scotch. On the contrary, here is the independent report. Conclusion: legally capable, consciousness clear, free will confirmed. We also have the video evidence of her declaration of intent. Adam felt a suffocating, terrifying realization. He had risked everything, committed murder, only to be utterly ruined by the very woman he had killed. "And what about me?" Adam asked, his voice barely a whimper. The notary patiently laid out the devastating reality. Mrs. Thorne's assets were overwhelmingly premarital. They were secured before your 5-year marriage. As the surviving spouse, you are entitled only to your share of the community property acquired during the marriage. This includes your salary, your personal savings, and the car registered in your name. "You mean, I get nothing?" Adam whispered, the word nothing tasting like ash. "You get what you legally acquired during the 5 years, Mr. Sterling. Ms. Thorne ensured you are absolutely destitute of the estate wealth." Adam was silent. His head swam with the devastating truth. 5 years. Poisoning, lying, waiting. Also, some invisible housekeeper could inherit billions. The revenge was a masterpiece of cold, calculated destruction. "Where is she?" he asked, dangerously quiet. "Ms. Reyes has accepted the inheritance through her legal representative," the notary replied, closing the file. "Her location is confidential." "I will find her," Adam vowed, pushing himself up, swaying slightly. "I will make her an offer she cannot refuse." "That is impossible," Hampton interjected, his eyes narrowed. "My client desires absolutely no contact with you. You are considered a person of interest in the murder of your wife and a direct threat to Ms. Reyes. I advise you to leave, retain criminal defense counsel immediately, and brace yourself for the legal battles ahead." Adam and Anya stumbled out of the office. On the street, the clear Phoenix sunshine felt like an insult. "It's all gone," Adam whispered, turning to Anya, his eyes burning with frantic, untamed hatred. "Not everything," Anya said, her voice sharp. "We find this girl, we intimidate her, we bribe her to renounce the inheritance, we act fast. Hampton has hidden her, but I have contacts. We will take back what is ours." Adam nodded. His only remaining motive was the absolute destruction of Lee Reyes. While Adam Sterling spiraled into a vortex of rage and disbelief, plotting the downfall of his new enemy, a critical meeting was underway in Jason Hampton's secure downtown office. Hampton sat across from Cassidy Bell and Detective Roy Singleton, a private investigator known for his surgical precision and his past life as a homicide detective in the Phoenix PD. Singleton, a stocky man in his early 40s with weary, focused eyes, had a reputation for finding what others missed. "The situation is clear," Hampton began, leaning forward over the mahogany desk. "Lee Reyes is safe for now. We moved her immediately to a remote rental in Flagstaff, and she's taken a cover job under an assumed identity. But Garrett, Sterling, rather, he won't stop. He's dangerous, desperate, and has already demonstrated he's capable of murder. He'll hit her on 3 fronts," Singleton analyzed, tapping a pen against a printout of Lee's personnel file. "Legally, he'll contest the will under fraud and coercion. Financially, he'll try to bribe her. And if both fail, he'll resort to physical intimidation or elimination. We are dealing with a predator who just lost his billion-dollar prey. Our priority is twofold," Hampton stated. "Protect Lee and neutralize Sterling legally with a murder indictment. The first step is securing the evidence," Singleton interjected. "You said the toxicology reports from the LA lab were destroyed by Sterling, but you recovered 2 cryopreserved vials from the hidden compartment in the vault." "That's correct," Hampton confirmed. "Labeled Control Sample A and Control Sample B, Vivian Thorne. She was brilliant, Roy. She didn't just want the report, she kept the original physical evidence. These samples must contain the compound. Get them to the most secure, independent forensic lab in the country," Singleton ordered. "Not locally, not the state." We need a chain of custody so airtight it could withstand a federal defense team. I recommend a lab in Chicago or DC. They must isolate the substance, identify the chemical structure, and, crucially, determine the half-life and the rate of introduction. We need to prove a pattern of systematic poisoning, not just the presence of toxins. Hampton nodded grimly. Consider it done. Cassidy is already arranging a secure courier. Good. Now, the second part, the criminal case, Singleton continued. Without the murder charge, he's free to hunt Lee. I've initiated my investigation at the Olympus Clinic. I'm going through every minute of the VIP floor security footage from the last 3 months. I'm looking for 2 things: Sterling's unexplained presence and, more importantly, Dr. Anya Sharma's involvement. Hampton looked up sharply. Anya Sharma. Vivian's husband's support at the notary's office? She's a pharmacist. Exactly. A pharmacist with access to rare, restricted compounds. If Sterling poisoned Vivian, he needed a supplier. Sharma is the weakest link. I'm running her financials, her phone records, and her dispensing logs. Murderers always leave a paper trail when they try to source the weapon. Meanwhile, Lee Reyes was trying to adjust to her new reality in Flagstaff. She was living in a sparsely furnished apartment complex near the university, working under the name Laura Reed in a small library archive. A quiet, solitary job far removed from the stench of disinfectant and human illness. She felt like a ghost, terrified of receiving mail, answering a knock, or even looking too long at her own reflection. The $50,000 emergency trust fund O'Connell had wired her felt unreal. She had used a fraction of it to pay off her sister's most immediate medical bills, the crushing debt that had defined her existence. That was the only tangible good that had come from Vivian's death, but the relief was overshadowed by a crippling fear. The only communication she received was via an encrypted line from Hampton. You need to stay invisible, Lee. The media is desperate for your story, the cleaning lady heiress. Sterling is frantic. He's already filed a preliminary challenge to the will. What does he say? Lee asked, her voice barely a breath. He claims you coerced a terminally ill woman under duress and undue influence. It's standard procedure, but weak. We have the video, the notary, and the doctor. The will stands, but he's not relying on the courts anymore. He's relying on fear. Lee swallowed hard. He's a killer, Mr. Hampton. He won't stop until he gets the money or until I'm gone. That's why Singleton is working around the clock. We are close to confirming the poisoning. Just stay put, trust no one, and keep your routine exactly the same. But the threat was already closing in. In Phoenix, Adam Sterling and Anya Sharma were meeting late at night in a desolate parking garage. Anya was frantic. The police were at my pharmacy today, Adam. They were asking about controlled substances and unusual dispensing patterns. They specifically mentioned compounds used in palliative care. Adam's face, usually so composed, was contorted with fear and fury. They're circling. Hampton is pushing the murder theory. Did you say anything? No, I stalled them. But the problem is the inventory log. That drug is tracked meticulously by the manufacturer, by lot number. I signed out the missing inventory, Adam. If they get the forensic report from Vivian's samples, they'll match the compound to the batch number, and that number leads directly to me. Adam stared at her, the reality of their situation slamming into him. Vivian's revenge was not just legal, it was forensic. She had ensured that the paper trail of the murder weapon would expose them both. We have to move the timeline up, Adam rasped, gripping Anya's arm so hard his fingers dug into her flesh. Forget the legal challenge. We find Reyes, force her to sign a renunciation document, and we disappear. Now, before Hampton gets the lab results, how do we find her? Hampton's got her locked down. Adam's eyes narrowed, a cold, predatory gleam returning. You forget, Anya, I was CEO of a massive corporation. We built a network. I know how to find the invisible. I know who was paid off, who keeps old files, and who has access to the real employee records, not the ones Hampton scrubbed. He pulled out his phone, his handsome face now hard and ugly. I have a contact, a specialist in off-the-books extraction. We'll offer him a piece of the pie. Lee Reyes is about to find out that being invisible won't save her from a desperate man who has lost everything. Adam Sterling's desperation fueled his dangerous efficiency. Within hours of his confrontation with Anya, he was meeting in a private, unmarked location with a man known only as Cale. Cale was a former military intelligence operative turned specialist in asset recovery, a euphemism for high-level intimidation and locating the untraceable. The target is Lee Reyes, Adam explained, placing Lee's old clinic ID photo on the scarred wooden table. She's a ghost. No digital footprint, new identity, hidden by my wife's attorney. I need her found immediately and brought to me, unharmed but highly motivated to sign a document. Cale, a lean man with watchful, impersonal eyes, barely glanced at the photograph. The attorney, Hampton, is professional. He will have taken precautions. Why is she worth the risk? She controls the entire Thorne estate. Billions. I will pay you $5 million once the renunciation document is signed and notarized. Cale didn't react to the figure. I don't need a payout after the fact, Mr. Sterling. I need $50,000 now and a secured escrow for the rest. And I need access to internal clinic data. Not the current HR files, but the archived payroll and benefits enrollment information. Hampton might have wiped her current status, but the old records, especially emergency contact and dependent health forms, are usually left alone. Adam, whose connections still ran deep within the former Thorne empire, nodded instantly. Done. I still control the access codes for the legacy servers. You will have everything you need by midnight. Find her, Cale. The clock is ticking before the official forensic report comes in. Meanwhile, in the secure, sterile environment of the Chicago Forensic Lab, Detective Roy Singleton was on a tense video conference with the lead toxicologist. The results from Vivian Thorne's cryopreserved samples were ready. The analysis is definitive, detective, the toxicologist stated, tapping her screen. The compound isolated from the hepatic tissue is a potent alkaloid derivative, highly restricted. It causes cumulative, irreversible organ failure by disrupting cellular protein synthesis. It was introduced in microdoses, likely daily, over a period of many months. So, homicide, Singleton said flatly, and the source. That's the smoking gun, detective. We've matched the compound's unique trace elements, the specific chemical signature, to a batch manufactured 18 months ago. That batch was distributed to less than 5 specialized treatment centers in the entire Southwest. We have the lot number. That number is going straight to the DEA and the Phoenix PD inventory control, Singleton declared. That will lead us directly to the pharmacist who signed it out. Detective, one more thing, the toxicologist added, her voice dropping. The level of the compound, found in the last sample, control sample A, was significantly higher than the presumed maintenance dose. It was a lethal escalation delivered in the final 72 hours. This was not just a prolonged poisoning. It was a deliberate final overdose when the killer realized the end was near. This confirms intent. Singleton ended the call, his jaw set. He immediately contacted Jason Hampton. We have the evidence, Jason. Homicide confirmed. We have the specific lot number that points directly to Anya Sharma's pharmacy. The district attorney is moving for an immediate arrest warrant for Sharma and a material witness hold on Sterling. This is moving fast. Excellent work, Roy, Hampton replied, a wave of relief washing over his professional severity. But Sterling won't wait for the warrant. He knows he's exposed. His only play now is to force Lee's hand. He's already made his move, Singleton said, his eyes scanning the monitors displaying the clinic surveillance footage. I found a blank spot in the system, a 10-minute period where the cameras on the VIP floor were consistently cycling during a system update 3 nights ago, just before Vivian's passing. I think that's when Sterling or his associate slipped in the lethal dose. Focus on Lee, Roy. He's coming for her. Back in Flagstaff, Lee was growing restless. The monotony of her Laura Reed life felt like a cage. She missed her sister, who was still recovering in Phoenix. The fear that Adam might use her sister to get to her was a constant, heavy weight. One morning, while working quietly in the university archives, an elderly colleague brought her a stack of boxes. These are from the 1990s, the woman explained. Old personnel files from a defunct cleaning company we used back then. Just toss them. As Lee began sorting the brittle, dusty files, her mind wandered back to Vivian Thorne, the formidable woman who, in her final hours, had seen past the uniform and granted her freedom. She owed Vivian more than just survival. She owed her justice. She realized the irony. She, the cleaner, was now the protector of the billion-dollar Thorne empire, a fortune built on the very principles of calculation and strategy that Vivian had used to execute her final revenge. That evening, Lee risked a single phone call on the encrypted line to Hampton. "Mr. Hampton, I need to know something." Adam Sterling would have had access to all of Vivian's personal history, wouldn't he? Yes, certainly. For 5 years. Why? Vivian said her vault code was her mother's birthday, 8,021,968. Adam knew that, but he still didn't find the vials immediately. He must have opened the safe last night. Why did he miss the evidence? Hampton paused, impressed by her critical thinking. He was blinded by arrogance, Lee. He saw the empty compartment where he expected the will to be. He didn't look for the small, hidden samples. Exactly, Lee murmured. Arrogance. He assumes I am as blind as he is, but I know about cleaning. I know about looking under, behind, and through things. I know where people hide secrets when they think they've cleared the clutter. He's looking for me the way Vivian looked for a business rival, but I'm looking for him the way I look for a loose screw or a hidden stain. She hung up, her fear replaced by a cold, quiet resolve. Lee had been invisible her whole life. It was time to use her invisibility as a weapon. She knew Adam was coming. She just needed to be ready for him. Meanwhile, Cale, the operative, had done his work. He had found Lee's old dependent enrollment forms on the legacy server. Her sister's name, current hospital, and a secondary address were all clearly listed. He immediately sent a text message to Adam Sterling, target located. Secondary asset identified, preparing for extraction. Cale's text message, target located. Secondary asset identified, preparing for extraction. Jolted Adam Sterling from his state of despair into cold, focused action. He immediately met Cale in a discreet industrial park on the outskirts of Phoenix, his heart pounding with the brutal realization that his redemption hinged entirely on this violent, detached man. What is the secondary asset? Adam demanded, skipping all pleasantries. A sister, Cale replied, his voice flat. Medical records show ongoing dialysis treatment at the Phoenix Medical Center. That's her tether. Lee Ray's, Laura Reed, is located in an apartment complex in Flagstaff near the university. She visits the sister weekly, sometimes more, often driving late at night. The link is physical, emotional, and exploitable. A cruel, predatory smile touched Adam's lips. This was a classic corporate leverage play, only amplified by life and death. Vivian had stripped him of his money, but she hadn't stripped him of his ruthlessness. "We don't touch the sister," Adam instructed, his voice low and commanding. "We wait for Lee to visit, or we use the sister as bait to draw her back to Phoenix. We need her lucid, frightened, and willing to sign the document. I want the renunciation signed, notarized, and filed before Hampton gets the official warrant for my arrest." "Extraction will be handled tonight," Cale confirmed. "The Flagstaff location is isolated. We will bring her to a secure holding unit outside the city. Expect delivery within 8 hours." Adam wired the escrow payment to Cale, the immense sum a testament to his desperate conviction. He now had the resources of a murderer and the cold determination of a disgraced mogul. The warrant was indeed imminent. Detective Roy Singleton had used the preliminary forensic match from the Chicago lab to convince the district attorney's office that Dr. Anya Sharma posed an immediate flight risk. An urgent warrant for her arrest was issued, with an accompanying request for a material witness warrant for Adam Sterling. Singleton and a team of Phoenix PD officers arrived at Anya Sharma's high-end condo building just as she was attempting to flee. She was halfway out the door, carrying a small, heavy suitcase and her passport. The moment she saw the officers, her composure shattered. "It wasn't my idea," Anya screamed, tears streaming down her face as the police cuffed her. "He made me do it. He promised me a lifetime." "It was Adam. He gave her the tea." Singleton observed the meltdown dispassionately. The material witness had just confirmed the motive and the method. Now they had the source of the poison. They had the method and the motive. All they needed was Adam Sterling and Lee Reyes, who was now officially classified as an endangered protected witness. Singleton called Hampton immediately. Adam's contact, Anya, has cracked. She's talking. Sterling knows he's exposed. He's going to ground, but he won't run without the money. He's going for Lee now. He has to be. Hampton felt a terrible, crushing weight. He had promised Vivian he would protect the heir. We need to move her. Flagstaff isn't secure enough. We don't have time, Singleton replied, urgency sharp in his voice. We can't rely on the warrant to locate him. He'll disappear. We need to find him through Lee. We need to get eyes on her now. In Flagstaff, Lee Reyes was driving her beat-up car, not toward her quiet apartment, but toward a remote, all-night diner she often used as a stopover. Her anxiety was a low, constant hum, and she had spent the entire evening checking her rearview mirror. She thought back to her conversation with Hampton. He's looking for me the way Vivian looked for a business rival, but I'm looking for him the way I look for a loose screw or a hidden stain. Lee, the cleaner, had an eye for anomalies. She didn't look at faces or cars, she looked at patterns of usage. At the university archive, she had studied the security protocols. She knew where the cameras were, where the lights flickered, and most importantly, where the blind spots were. She understood the psychology of hiding and the pathology of exposure. Her greatest vulnerability was her sister. She knew Adam would find that connection immediately. She wouldn't wait for him to exploit it. Lee pulled into the diner parking lot, a sparse area bordered by a thick line of trees. As she cut the engine, she noticed something that instantly triggered a cold wave of alarm. A car, dark and unremarkable, was parked several spots away, near the shadows of the trees. It wasn't the car itself, but the fact that it was clean. Too clean for a gravel lot, too new for this beaten-down diner, and most critically, the license plate was slightly tilted, a subtle effort to avoid reflection on a security camera or dash cam. It was an anomaly of perfection, a loose screw. Instead of going into the diner, Lee slipped her small bag, containing the encrypted phone and a basic utility knife she always carried, onto the passenger seat. She opened the door, deliberately letting the interior dome light stay on, and then, feigning a clumsy stumble, she dropped her car keys right beneath her own vehicle. She bent down, taking her time, looking under her car. From that vantage point, she saw the silhouette of two men suddenly move from the dark car toward her. They were closing the distance too quickly, too smoothly. Extraction. Lee didn't scream or run toward the brightly lit diner. She knew that would only invite pursuit and violence. She had to use her own environment, the way she used a mop and a bucket, with deliberate, unseen efficiency. She scrambled up, slamming her car door shut but not locking it. Her bag with the phone was still visible on the seat. She pressed herself against the side of her car and moved low, quickly, away from the men, toward the dense line of pines. The two men, Cale and his partner, saw her disappear into the shadows. Cale spoke into his mic. "Target is mobile, heading into the tree line. Secure the car." Adam Sterling, waiting anxiously in a safe house 100 miles away, heard the report. "Do not lose her, Cale. She is the key to everything." Lee was not running blindly. She was heading toward a low, muddy ditch running parallel to the highway, a place the professionals would never expect her to go. She dropped into the frigid, filthy water, pulling pine branches over her head. She was a cleaner, used to grime and working in the unpleasant corners of the world. She was the dirt they couldn't see. Cale and his partner rushed past her, their expensive boots crunching on the gravel, completely missing the small figure submerged in the ditch just feet away. Lee pulled out the encrypted phone. She had to warn Hampton, but more importantly, she had to set her own bait. Submerged in the frigid, muddy ditch, Lee Reyes, the woman who had been defined by the unseen labor of cleaning, pulled the tiny, encrypted phone from her jacket. Her breath hitched, ragged and shallow. She dialed Jason Hampton's secure line, her fingers shaking against the cold plastic. Hampton answered instantly, his voice taut with anxiety. "Lee, where are you?" "Singleton just got the warrant. Sterling is moving." "He's here," Lee whispered, the sound muffled by the water and the branches. "Flagstaff. He sent men, 2 of them. I'm in the ditch by the highway diner. They've gone past me." A moment of stunned silence from the other end. "He used the sister, didn't he?" Hampton's voice was filled with self-reproach. He will, but that's not the critical thing now. Mr. Hampton, I'm going to turn around. I'm going back to Phoenix. What? No, that's suicide, Lee. We're coming for you. Listen to me, I know how they think now. They're looking for the terrified heiress who will run and hide. They need me alive to sign the papers. But Adam is exposed, and he's desperate. His only safe place is the place he feels most powerful, Vivian's office. But he assumes I am running away from the danger. I'm going to run to it. I'm the cleaning lady, Mr. Hampton. I know where the dirt is, and I know how to use the quiet moments. Adam's going to move to his safe house to wait for his men to bring me in. I know where that safe house is. It's the old Thorn Group Property Ledger warehouse in Scottsdale, the one that's digitally dark, but that Vivian used for physical storage. I heard him mention it to a staff member once years ago, complaining about the drive. Hampton's lawyer's mind, trained to follow logic, caught up instantly. It's untraceable. He'll hole up there with the documents, waiting for Cale to deliver you. Exactly. I'm the bait, but I'm going to set the trap. I'm taking the car, Lee said, her voice stealing. I'm going to drive back and lead him to the warehouse, but you need to do two things immediately. First, notify Singleton that Sterling is moving to the Scottsdale warehouse. Second, I need access to the Thorn Group server, not the HR files, the old, legacy security blueprints. The ones that show all the blind spots, the outdated security alarms, and the maintenance crawl spaces in the main Phoenix estate. Hampton was stunned by her audacity and strategic clarity. Why the estate, Lee? Because Adam's going to flee the country after he gets the signature. He'll make one last stop before his plane, Vivian's office safe. He destroyed the paper reports, but he won't leave the cash or the bearer bonds Vivian kept in the secondary safe compartment. He'll go for the physical liquidity. He needs to empty that safe before he runs. You want to ambush him at the main estate? I want to clean him out, Lee corrected, a cold sense of purpose settling over her. The safest place to catch a murderer is the place he thinks he controls. It's my inheritance now. I know the estate better than Adam does. I know the service corridors, the faulty locks, and the janitorial closets. It's my battlefield. Hampton made a swift decision, realizing that this former cleaner possessed the exact calculated cunning that Vivian had intended. Lee, I'll send the blueprints to your burner phone in a secure file, along with the main estate alarm code bypass, a master code Vivian always changed annually, which I have, but you must wait for Singleton to be in position. I won't wait, Lee countered. I'll go in. You just make sure the police are there for the cleanup. She ended the call, tossed the phone into the mud, and began crawling back to the highway. Meanwhile, Cale and his partner, realizing they had been fooled by the simplest of maneuvers, returned to the diner. Cale saw the open car door, the abandoned bag, and the missing person. He immediately contacted Adam. We lost her. She used the terrain. It's possible she's heading back to Phoenix. She knows about the sister. Adam, already driving toward Scottsdale, slammed his hand on the dashboard. Then she's coming to me. She's trying to be a hero. Get back here. Find her on the highway. She's driving a beat-up blue sedan, license plate. Adam's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown, untraceable number. It was Detective Singleton. Mr. Sterling, Singleton's voice was calm, but filled with the authority of the law. We have Dr. Anya Sharma in custody. She's provided a full confession regarding the poisoning of Vivian Thorne. We are now moving on you, Mr. Sterling. You are aware that the Scottsdale warehouse is surrounded. Adam pulled over, screeching the car to a halt. His carefully constructed world crumbled completely. They had the evidence, the confession, and they had anticipated his hideout. He was cornered, but he still had one chance. You don't have me, Adam snarled into the phone. And you don't have the assets. I'm going back for the final withdrawal. You want me, Singleton? Meet me at the Thorne estate in 30 minutes. Bring your entire force. We can end this. He hung up, threw the phone out the window, and hit the gas. He wasn't running to the warehouse. He was going to the one place he still felt entitled to, Vivian's office, the safe, and the liquid cash that could buy him a new life in a non-extradition country. The money was his only remaining god. He calculated his timeline, 30 minutes to the estate, 5 minutes to access the safe, a few minutes for the final getaway. He didn't know that Lee Ray's was already closing in on the main estate, approaching it not from the grand, guarded main entrance, but from the service tunnel, armed with the knowledge of a cleaner, and Vivian's own security bypass codes. The Thorne estate, perched regally on a hill overlooking Phoenix, was a monument to Vivian Thorne's power, impenetrable, vast, and silent. Yet, on this dark night, it was about to become the epicenter of a desperate collision. Adam Sterling sped toward the mansion, the cold adrenaline masking his fear. He was driven by one single, frantic motive: liquidity. The safe in Vivian's office held enough unregistered bearer bonds and cash to fund his escape and a comfortable new life. He cursed Vivian, her final, perfect spite. She had allowed him to think he was the heir, only to snatch the fortune away, forcing him into a desperate, visible chase. He slammed his luxury vehicle into the 3-car garage, using his old executive code to raise the security gate. He rushed through the silent, marble-floored house, ignoring the priceless art and the hushed echoes of his failed marriage. He reached the expansive, mahogany-paneled office. The air still held the faint, lingering scent of Vivian's perfume. He went straight to the large, hidden wall safe behind a bookcase. He entered the master code, Vivian's mother's birthday, the same code he had used to check for the will, the one that had fooled him into missing the vials. He heard the satisfying thunk as the heavy vault door unlocked. Inside, the safe was neatly organized. He bypassed the complex estate documents and focused on the lower, smaller compartment. He quickly grabbed the thick stacks of cash and the portfolios containing millions in untraceable bonds. As he worked, his mind raced, charting his escape route, a prearranged private plane leaving from a remote regional airport. He was almost free. Meanwhile, Lee Ray's was already deep inside the fortress. She had approached the property not via the manicured drive, but through the maintenance tunnels below the terraced gardens. She used the old, forgotten master code provided by Hampton to override the perimeter alarms, a system Vivian had installed years ago and then mentally discarded, assuming no one would ever know the backdoor. Lee moved with the practiced stealth of someone accustomed to moving in the dark, unnoticed. She was wearing her former work clothes, dark, unbranded cotton, perfect for blending with shadows. She knew the floor plan intimately: the creaking floorboard outside the kitchen, the loose ventilation grate above the security room, and the silent, rarely used service stairs leading directly to the upper floor, just behind Vivian's office. She ascended the stairs, her feet silent on the dusty concrete. The old steel door at the top led into the executive lounge adjoining the office. Lee stopped, listening intently. She heard the distinct, rhythmic clinking of metal against metal, Adam frantically clearing the safe. She checked the time. Singleton and the Phoenix PD would be mobilizing the tactical unit, but they would be approaching the main gate, which would take time to breach without alarming the entire neighborhood. This had to be done before the perimeter was fully secured. Lee slipped through the lounge door. She didn't have a gun, her weapon was her invisibility and her knowledge of the mundane. Adam was bent over the safe, stuffing the final bundle of cash into his briefcase, his back completely exposed. "Adam!" Lee's voice was quiet, steady, and utterly cold. Adam froze. The sound was not a ghost. It was real, and it came from inside the room. He whirled around, his eyes wide with shock and fury. He saw her, the insignificant cleaning lady, now standing in Vivian's office, bathed in the soft glow of the desk lamp. "Lee Ray's," he hissed, the name tasting like poison on his tongue. "You stupid, arrogant little fool, you ran straight back to me. I should have known Vivian would pick someone equally reckless." He snapped the briefcase shut and placed it on the desk, shielding it with his body. "You're too late, the money is mine, but it doesn't have to be a total loss for you. I will give you $10 million, tax-free, no questions asked, to sign this renunciation right now. You walk away wealthy and alive. You fight, and you lose everything, including your life." Lee didn't move. She looked past him, not at the briefcase, but at the heavy, ornate marble pedestal that held one of Vivian's prized antique statues. "You killed her for this," Lee stated, her voice thick with contained emotion. 5 years of lying just to buy a few minutes in front of this safe. I promised her justice, Adam, and I'm here to deliver it. Justice is for the courts, Rays. This is reality." Adam reached for the silver letter opener on the desk, a sharp, heavy spike. "Sign the paper, or you die here, and the lawyer gets a note saying you ran off with the 10 million. As Adam moved toward her, brandishing the makeshift weapon, Lee remained calm. She saw him not as a powerful man, but as a predictable object moving through a defined space. "You assume I came here to fight you," Lee said, taking a deliberate step to the side. "But I came here to clean." As he lunged, Lee didn't attempt to block the attack. Instead, she executed a rapid, precise action. Her hand shot out and struck the marble pedestal with a powerful, calculated force. The pedestal, which she knew from years of cleaning was structurally unbalanced on the polished floor, tipped instantly. The heavy bronze statue of a Roman emperor crashed down onto the desk, its impact scattering documents and, more importantly, landing squarely on Adam's outstretched hand that held the letter opener. A raw, agonizing shriek tore from Adam's throat. The letter opener clattered away. His right hand, the hand that had held the poison, was crushed and immobilized beneath the immense weight of the marble and bronze. Lee was instantly behind the desk. Before Adam could recover from the pain, she grabbed the briefcase containing the cash and bonds. She looked at him, her face completely expressionless. "You should have looked under the desk, Adam. The cleaners always know where the foundation is weak." She turned and ran out the same service door she had entered, leaving him screaming in a mixture of pain and devastating, final defeat. Lee Reyes burst through the service door and flew down the hidden stairway, the leather briefcase containing millions in bearer bonds tucked securely under her arm. The shrieking rage of Adam Sterling echoed faintly behind her, a sound of monumental defeat that was sweeter than any music. She had the money he had murdered for, and his physical incapacitation meant he was pinned, ready for the capture. She didn't head for the main gate. She slipped out through the dusty maintenance tunnel near the terraced gardens, emerging into the crisp night air. As she crested the hill, she saw the lights. Not the flickering lights of a single patrol car, but the blinding, coordinated sequence of multiple vehicles, blue and red flashing lights, the quiet, focused power of a tactical police unit swarming the main entrance of the Thorne estate. Detective Roy Singleton and Jason Hampton were directing the operation from the command post set up at the foot of the drive. Singleton's voice crackled over the radio, ordering the breach of the main security gate. Lee walked toward them calmly, no longer a phantom or an operative, but the executor of a billion-dollar legacy. Singleton spotted the figure emerging from the darkness, carrying a very expensive, very full briefcase. He immediately stepped away from the police action and approached her, Hampton following close behind. "Lee Reyes?" Singleton asked, his eyes sharp and assessing. "Yes, detective," Lee replied, her breathing steady. She held out the briefcase. "He's inside Vivian's office. He tried to take the liquid assets before fleeing. He won't be going anywhere. He's been secured." Hampton looked at the briefcase, then at Lee's calm, mud-streaked face. "The renunciation document? He didn't get to it," Lee said simply. "He got what he deserved." Singleton nodded, reading the silent story on her face. He didn't ask how a cleaning woman had secured an armed murderer. He just signaled his officers. "Entry team, hold fire. Suspect is incapacitated but armed with a knife. Proceed with caution." The final act played out quickly. Adam Sterling was found exactly where Lee had left him, pinned to the desk by the immense bronze statue, screaming in agony and fury. The police extracted him, his hand visibly crushed, his eyes blazing with a hatred so pure it was almost physical. He was read his rights, arrested for the premeditated murder of Vivian Thorne, with the added charges of assault, attempted flight, and destruction of evidence. The next morning, the news hit the nation like a seismic shockwave. The death of the beloved mogul Vivian Thorne was not from natural causes, but a systematic poisoning orchestrated by her own husband, Adam Sterling. The scandal dominated headlines, but the biggest shock was the will. The entire Thorne empire, hospitals, real estate, and financial holdings, had been bequeathed to Lee Reyes, the former cleaning woman. Jason Hampton held a press conference confirming the legality of the will and the establishment of a charitable trust in Vivian Thorne's name, to be overseen by the new heiress. Lee, however, was nowhere to be seen. She was in a quiet, sunlit room at the Phoenix Medical Center, sitting beside her sister, whose medical debts were now erased and whose future was secure. Lee had delivered the justice she had promised. Adam Sterling was tried, convicted based on Anya Sharma's testimony and the irrefutable forensic evidence from the cryopreserved vials, and sentenced to life without parole. Lee Reyes did not take the private jets, the penthouse, or the executive office. She used her inheritance to establish the Vivian Thorne Foundation for Unseen Laborers, dedicated to providing health care and education funds for low-wage service workers and their families. She hired Jason Hampton to manage the estate, ensuring its profitability remained intact. Vivian Thorne had not only secured her revenge, she had achieved something far greater. She had transformed a victim of poverty into a powerful force for good, using her fortune as a final, righteous tool. Lee Reyes, the cleaning lady, became the quiet custodian of a billion-dollar empire, proving that the greatest power often lies in those who know how to look closely at the things others ignore. She traded her mop for a mantle of responsibility, never forgetting the cold, calculated look of determination in the eyes of the dying woman who had trusted the invisible. End of narration. Thank you for listening to this incredible story of betrayal, revenge, and the power of the unseen. It's a reminder that even in the final moments, your legacy is always in your hands. If you enjoyed the twists, the drama, and the ultimate justice served in the story of Vivian Thorne and Lee Reyes, please hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Betty's Stories for new, true-to-life, and thrilling narratives every single day. We'll see you next time.